Hello, Cypress Bay. It is with my great pleasure to be addressing all of you. My name is Lau Rodriguez. My teachers may know me, some faculty may know me, but most of you definitely don't. And I'll definitely tell you how you may or may not know me because of the name, and that is because you guys watched a certain documentary of mine called Prove It. I was one of the head creators, main producer and director, and yeah, I actually wanted to start off with thanking all of you for listening to Naya and Kaylin and the message that we formulated through that documentary and the change in mindset and maybe a little bit of policy. I know that there's going to be a little more sensitivity training and a lot more talking about these issues with a lot more transparency, and that's an awesome thing that I could have never guessed would happen, and it is with my greatest joy that that has happened. So I thank you all for listening to me and for listening to Naya and Kaylin. But I'm really here to talk about another marginalized community that it's now my turn to be personally affiliated with, and that is the transgender community at Cypress. Those of you who don't know me, I may seem very masculine, and that is because I am. I've been transitioning for almost 2 years now medically. I've been out for a lot more, 2.5 years basically, and when I tell you it's been a ride, it's because it's been a ride. I came out my sophomore year as trans, although I wasn't technically in school really to let anybody know, because I was coming to terms with my identity. And I would love to say that my apology is very genuine to those teachers, but it's not. It wasn't really my fault either, because of gender dysphoria. And that is really why I'm here to talk to you guys. And it's because my experience at Cypress, although I'm in a much better place now, was not all that good. And that's surprising considering what and who and what Cypress really stands for, right? So I just want to outright say, to those who may not know what being trans is, trans essentially means that you do not identify with the gender that you were assigned at birth. Gender and sex are two completely different things. It is scientifically proven that they are completely different things. The binary should really not exist when it comes to gender, and not even sex, because that erases the experiences of intersex people. But essentially, transgender encompasses trans men, like myself, who was born female, assigned female at birth, and did not really feel that way when I grew up, and even as I was growing up. It also encompasses trans women, non-binary people who do not identify with either binary genders, and gender fluid people who may feel both masculine, feminine. It's in the name. It's gender fluidity. So your gender is very fluid. Those are the four basic ones that are off the top of my head. But gender is so fluid. It's such a spectrum, just like sexuality, that we really need to kind of push ourselves to understand that, because our biology courses, our schools do not teach that whatsoever. And it's important that we acknowledge other identities and other people, because there are students that identify this way. So I essentially kind of want to talk to you guys about my own experience at Cypress first, before giving any suggestions or talking about other people's experiences who have come to me and talked to me about them. I really want to start off with the fact that I'm really disappointed in school for not being able to accommodate my yearbook or my ID but especially my yearbook, because I have to live with the fact that my peers will see my dead name for the rest of my life. Even though I was literally wearing the tuxedo in the picture for my senior picture, it's embarrassing, it's gross, it's disheartening. I asked several people and they all told me that it wasn't possible. Let's make it possible, because I really don't think legally it's a problem. Same with the ID changes. Every single university does it. I don't see how you guys can't accommodate that too. I'm really glad that the school's starting to accommodate. I know that people have changed the name that appears when you open and sign into one of the school computers. That's awesome. I had to also deal with like holding my computer a little down around my classmates so that they wouldn't see that shit. And I guess that's like okay. I wasn't like too fond of it. But that's something also that needs to start changing even more. Also with diplomas, I actually have one of my trans roommates. Really cool thing that they did in a Boston school was that they gave him 2 diplomas, one with his dead name and one with his actual name, which is really awesome and something that Cypress should consider doing, even though graduation is super hectic. We may be a really small minority, but I feel like that means it shouldn't be too hard to cater to our needs, right? That is not only the only experience that I've had with like being trans. I really don't like being in Burger's classroom and holding in my pee, because well, I mean, it's also econ, so I don't go in that class, but like any of the portable classes, and then having to go all the way to the College and Career Center only for the College and Career Center bathroom and the College and Career Center in general to be closed. So not only did I waste like 10 minutes going to and from, and like minus the bathroom time that I would have taken, it's just kind of ridiculous that that's literally the only gender inclusive bathroom on campus. I have a lot more to say about that later on, but I think the most horrifying experience I had being a trans student was probably with a lunch lady who swiped my ID, saw my dead name come up on my screen, looked at me, and asked me if I was playing a trick on her. A lot of you don't know, but trick and trap specifically are common slurs used against trans people. And I can't express not just the fear that I had being around all those people in that lunch line and being outed that way, but just the tears that came out of me after that happened. I also don't appreciate when one of my sophomore year teachers was very condescending and just didn't understand gender dysphoria and how it disabled me from coming to school for so long. And I want to get into that because gender dysphoria is the anxiety that comes with knowing that the outer world does not perceive you the way that you perceive yourself. That gender dysphoria nearly pushed me to end my life my sophomore year, and it was really disappointing when this teacher, I won't name names, but look at the ACO department, essentially just really did not understand that the anxiety that comes with going into a space where people do not see your identity, who may be violent against you if you try to correct them, is terrifying. Not only that, I was severely depressed because of gender dysphoria and overall. And I know it was produced a lot by gender dysphoria because after like 2 years in therapy, I am so much better. I am in a great place. I feel so safe in this space that I'm in. I'm in gender inclusive housing. I've been visiting all these queer meetings for the LGBTQ centers here and all those clubs, and it's been great. So yeah, that it was just overall like shitty experience after another, and that's why I'm here talking to you. But the point is, like, I got out of there alive. I got out of Cypress alive. I'm here now at the University of Southern California studying film and TV production at their School of Cinematic Arts, which is literally rated the best film school in the country. So I could literally never be in a better place. World, not even country. And I am not the last trans person to go through Cypress. I was not the first, certainly not the last. So a lot of change needs to happen. I also want to advocate for some of my friends. I will not name names, but I do want to talk about their own experiences because each experience is different. Each experience also is perpetuated by a different kind of person. Like my experiences were through teachers, were really just teacher and lunch staff. Others have gone through different things, so I kind of want to talk about that. So I'm gonna read a text message that I was sent by one of my trans friends from school, who is still going to the school, about their own experience with certain faculty, and let me go. So just a disclaimer, I'm not going to mention any names for their own protection, but this is something that genuinely does happen. So, okay, so the biggest thing that happened to me last year, near the end of the year, within the last month, I was eating lunch with two of my friends, who are women. This is important to the story. They went to the bathroom and I walked with them waiting outside. For reference, I try as little as possible to never use the bathroom at school because I don't feel safe in either, but if I have to use one, I use the female bathroom. This is a trans man like me. I waited for about 3 minutes outside the women's bathroom. I then realized I wanted to wash my hands really quick because I knew only they were in there, so I felt safer about it. I washed my hands quickly, then exited in case anyone came in. As I walked out, the new security guard that was walking past me eyed me, turned around, walking back towards me. She pointed at me to walk over to her. I knew I hadn't done anything except wash my hands, so I wasn't anxious. She then proceeded to ask me what I was doing in the women's bathroom. I told her I washed my hands. She then very loudly in the middle of the hallway starts shouting, "Are you a boy or a girl?" repeatedly. I immediately shut down and refused to answer her. She then asked to see my ID. One of my friends had used whiteout to block out my birth name and used Sharpie to rewrite my actual name. As soon as she saw my ID, she started yelling, "Is this you? This doesn't look like you," as she proceeded to scratch off the whiteout with her nail. I didn't know what to say or do, so I stayed silent while my eyes were welling up from being overwhelmed. As soon as my friends came out of the bathroom, she immediately left me alone. Before she left me with the statement, "Never go in there again." Let me say that this is violence against a trans person, first and foremost, by one of the security guards at Cypress. To tell a trans kid to not go into the bathroom that they are even the slightest bit more comfortable going into is violence. Okay? Especially considering where the gender-inclusive bathroom is. It's super inconvenient to reach, so this was not okay. And to make it even worse, as this entire thing happened, people were walking through the hallways seeing everything. And I'm not completely out at school because of my own anxiety and past experiences, so it just worsened everything that happened for me. I never reported it because I knew she wouldn't have gotten in trouble. So that is just one of the experiences of someone else aside from me. I have another trans friend who tells me that he is dehydrated at school because he can't afford to drink and have to go to the bathroom during class, which is such a horrific thing to think about, that there's a child in school knowingly being dehydrated because of the situation that they're in. Not only does this happen like with bathroom situations, but teachers are sometimes no better. I was super lucky that I had very encouraging and knowledgeable people who were my teachers, right? Who made me feel at home, who made me feel like the man that I wanted to be seen as. Follow Heath Berger's example, because he is truly beautiful man for making me feel so comfortable and safe in his classroom, whether it was outside of class, like pulling me aside, telling me like, hey, I know you're going through a lot, but I'm really proud of you. Like he'd send me like, these are mind texts, not to like expose you, but this is like such a special thing for teachers to do, to remind their trans kids, there's trans students, that they matter, that they're seen, that they're safe in this space. And yeah, I would say follow that example, because I have friends who spent an entire year in A0 being out, having that teacher know what their pronouns were, what their actual name was and everything, and yet still constantly misgendering them, which again is also perpetuating violence against trans people. And I'll explain why, like, these simple, like, microaggressions, which are really just aggressions, are perpetuating violence. It's because trans people, whether we like it or not, have political bodies, right? We are disputed. We don't have rights as much as other people do. We are not seen in society. We can't even go into the bathroom without fearing for our lives. Like, that is something so horrific to think about, that trans kids can't go into the bathroom without fearing that they're going to be beat up or that they're going to be called slurs, which I'm about to say, so if you're uncomfortable, please do not listen. Like fairy, like faggot, like fag, dyke, tranny, he, she, her, like all she, he, all these different things. It's gross. And for a teacher to be perpetuating violence is so bad. Trans bodies, if you didn't know, like, simple statistics that I know off the top of my head are over 40% of the community attempt suicide at some point in their lives. So consider what your behavior in a classroom making a student feel subhuman would lead to. Also consider, like, trans women of color, their life expectancy is 30 years old because of the amount of violence that they face, the situations that they're in. Like, we get less housing. Angelica Ross, who is an incredible trans woman of color, she is in the Emmy-nominated show Pose. She's also an American Horror Story now. She has had trouble finding housing in LA, despite her status as a successful actress. Like, we are constantly discriminated against in healthcare, education, wherever you want, we are discriminated against. So for a public school teacher to be perpetuating violence is, quite frankly, unacceptable. Super unacceptable. And utterly disappointing that Cypress continuously hires really problematic faculty without making it mandatory for them to have at least some training. So I've also compiled a list of things that Cypress can do to kind of better this environment for trans kids. I know that a few of my friends who are trans are meeting with the principal, like, this week to talk to her about it, and that's so great that the principal is hearing us out. If you are seeing this, thank you so much. This video is more so to make the entire faculty aware of what's going on, the depth of the problem, because taking action without knowing what's going on isn't going to be enough. Like, I think people need to know about my experiences. I think people need to know about other people's experiences, even if they're not comfortable enough to stand in front of a camera and talk about it. So thank you so much for listening to us, and be willing to implement these changes to make Cypress a more inclusive and safer environment for trans kids. But aside from listening, I'm making this video sort of, I've been telling, like, light a fire under your ass. Like, this is pressure. This is pressure because I may have made it out of alive, like, and now studying at the University of Southern California, but not every single student is going to. So it's important that we pay attention and that we start implementing some changes. So here are going to be a couple of the things that you guys can do to start including trans people more. Okay, so first and foremost, I think Cypress needs to have more resources for trans students. Bring in experts. Hire at least a single trans consultant, a queer person who knows what they're doing, that can specifically cater to trans people's needs and other LGBTQ people's needs. Just someone who they can talk to specifically, who knows what they're going through, because it's not always likely that at home they're getting and receiving this kind of care, or that they have the opportunity to be taken to these experts. So it'd be really beneficial if we could have, like, at least one person in there who can connect with us and who can truly dedicate time to taking care of us, looking at trans-friendly, like, campuses. Knowing all these things is super important, right? It shouldn't just be about, like, getting into UF or FSU or other, like, the Ivies, right? Like, we need to know how to cater to trans people out of Cypress so that they can be the most successful people that they can be. The second is pretty basic. Plan to build gender-inclusive bathrooms in the new building. If you guys don't already have them in the blueprints, yeah, back it up. You need to. It's unacceptable that there's only, like, 2. That's pretty ridiculous. Okay, so third thing that the school can consider doing is accommodating name changes in the yearbook and on IDs. And as I stated before, maybe even the diplomas. I think it would have been awesome if I had a diploma that I could actually look at without wanting to puke. So I'm not sure how that happens. I really think it's such a simple thing to tell yearbook, like, yeah, change, like, so-and-so's name, change this person's name. Like, why is it... someone please explain to me why, because I looked it up. There's nothing on why your name has to be your legal name in the yearbook and the IDs. So, yeah. Fourth is that you guys need to have a mandatory sensitivity training for all faculty. When I was discussing this with one of the members of GSA, they told me that they think that there is, like a little symposium, I guess, about LGBTQ students, but it's not mandatory and it's only available to, like, teachers. Well, it's time that all your faculty get some training. It's also ridiculous to see some of the security acting like actual cops. I've had friends who've had panic attacks in the mornings coming into school because of security. The way that security is acting is disgusting, quite frankly. I think also, like, they racially profile all the time. Please have some training for all faculty. It's necessary. It's super necessary. Whether it comes from me or whether it comes from members of GSA, I'm available if you guys want to have someone, like, do a little presentation, whether it's like a PowerPoint that I can set up with my voice on it, or, like, people who are actually there to talk to you and answer questions, like maybe a Skype call if you want me, like, whatever it is, you guys need to have some training. And how I said, like, if you want to bring in an expert to do it, even better. That is so great if you bring in an expert. But yeah, I think the next thing that should be done is that teachers need to start speaking up in classrooms when they hear some bullshit happening. Kids should not be being called slurs willy-nilly in classes. I know that teachers don't hear everything, but the truth is they really do. Like, most teachers do. I've learned this through some, like, a lot of my teachers, that they really are paying attention to what you're saying, regardless of how busy you are. Like, we've got 2 ears, we've got complex minds, these are intelligent people who can be doing different things at the same time. Alright? So, knowing that, please take a proactive approach in your classrooms. And aside from taking like a proactive approach in the classrooms, respect your students, and also try, this is a suggestion from me, because I'm starting to advocate this a lot more that I've come into college and I've learned a lot more about pronoun usage. So just a little crash course on pronouns. Pronouns don't necessarily dictate your gender identity. Like, I go by he, him, his, but I'm also comfortable with they, them, theirs, even though I'm not non-binary or gender fluid. Like, it's just a way to address me respectfully without making me feel like I'm invalid. And that's such a simple thing that teachers can start implementing into their classes, right? Like, if you have an icebreaker where you ask everyone their name, right? Like, okay, everyone say their name, their pronouns, and like their favorite pizza, right? It's so simple, and it's really important. And I'll tell you exactly why it's important. It's because it breaks down the stigma around the way that we have to address people by their gender expression, or how we assume their gender expression is, right? So if someone may appear more masculine, but truly they like to be addressed as she, her, hers, or even they, them, theirs, it's important that we create a space where anybody can say their pronouns and not say their pronouns as well. Like, you don't have to say your pronouns if you're not comfortable with that. But if you're cis, like cisgender, meaning that you identify with the gender that you were given at birth, it does not hurt at all. You're not losing anything if you are simply saying, this is my name, these are my pronouns, my favorite pizza is Hawaiian. Fun fact. Okay, so aside from adopting this idea of pronoun sharing and pronoun respecting in classrooms, oh, I will note though, if you are sharing pronouns and a teenage boy decides to be real stupid, shame the hell out of them. Truly, the best way that I've seen kids stop being stupid is to let them know they are being stupid as shit. So don't be afraid to shame your students, really. Because that's really, in this day and age, how you teach drooling children. So hold students and teachers accountable, and really avoid like a Title IX issue. I'm not saying like fire certain teachers, but maybe definitely like not just like a slap on the wrist, but like cut off their hand. No, I'm kidding. But really talk to these students, talk to these teachers, and have consequences. Really. Like, if you're being discriminatory, you deserve a suspension. You deserve to get out of a space that you are making uncomfortable for another student. It's really unacceptable that students are allowed to continue going here when they're really like saying all these slurs whenever they want, thinking that it's okay. It's not. So hold students and teachers accountable so that it doesn't continue, that we're creating a safe and nice, inviting learning environment. So the last thing that I want to emphasize is celebration and communication of trans students and with trans students. I mean celebration mostly because it isn't just GSA's job. Like, it really should not just be GSA teaching the student body about trans bodies, LGBTQ issues, and everything in regards to what being queer is when they have their events in the courtyard. Like, yeah, it's awesome that this is like awesome visibility. I'm glad the school allows this to happen, but the school needs to start doing it too. The school can't just be celebrating, it's like Ivy League students, it's UF students. No, it needs to be celebrating things outside of like ethnicity and like culture and all these things. Being queer is important. It's a lifestyle. It's not necessarily a choice. Like, and a lot of people think that it is, but it's not. So we need to normalize it. It's okay to put up a poster that says like with the trans flag behind it, being like trans people aren't a burden. Like that is such a powerful thing. And if people start tearing them down, hold them accountable. There's no reason why there should be hatred permeating these halls. It should be a celebration of these students. Like the holidays should be, I wouldn't say like holidays, but the days like Trans Day of Remembrance should be recognized by the school. Put them in the announcements. Like, do a lot more to uplift these students. And when I mean communicate with trans students, like, there's so much that trans kids don't know at school, and they're way too scared to ask. As you remember me saying in that text that I read, they didn't report that because they didn't think that the security guard would be held accountable. And that's a fear that comes with being trans. It's not just like the school's fault. Like it's really, gender dysphoria is a tremendous draining experience on trans people. And that's something that people need to be a lot more considerate of, which is going to be the last thing that I mentioned really. But communication is vital because trans kids don't know that their counselor can send actual name and pronoun use, like emails to their teachers for the year. Like, they don't know that. I had to tell that to a lot of people, right, that I know, so that they could be able to do that too, so that they don't have to go in afraid of being misgendered right out from the first day. You should also let them know that their counselors can change their name in Pinnacle, and that also changes their name on the roster. Yeah, that's such a simple thing to let trans students know. Let them know that there is a gender-inclusive bathroom available in the College and Career Center. It's really ridiculous that a lot of the trans people I know did not know this. The people have literally been dehydrating at school for the sake of not going into a bathroom or into one of the gendered bathrooms. So let also the college and career faculty know that it's okay for trans students to go in and use that bathroom. I've heard of misunderstandings between students and faculty that makes them literally have a panic attack because all they're trying to do is go into the bathroom and relieve themselves. And I don't want to be like slandering other schools, but I have a friend who reached out to one of his schools that he went to, his high school, and their excuse for not communicating to trans students or the overall student body was because they didn't want to bring attention to it, which is quite frankly a transphobic excuse, like an outright transphobic excuse. The fact that you're not accommodating a group of people for the sake of not bringing attention to it. It's not like people are going to swarm the College and Career Center. It's not convenient for them. They're like, the people that need to use the bathroom are going to go out of their way to use that bathroom if they really need to. But also keep in mind that we do need to add more, that we need to make more bathrooms accessible. The second one that I talked about earlier, I was able to use because I asked special permission for it, which was the staff bathroom in the front. I know another kid has asked to use that one, but at the same time, train the faculty in the front to not look at you weird for using those bathrooms. Really, I know it's a staff bathroom, but I used to get so much looks that I stopped going in there. Let them know your name can be changed for graduation. I was able to do this year. I was super nervous about it, going up there, because I really did not want to be dead named at graduation. So it's essential that we allow students to know about these things. And most importantly, be considerate of your trans student experience. I'll be honest with you, I was not very honest with a lot of my teachers before senior year when it came to what was going on with me when I would miss class, because it felt like such an illegitimate excuse, which was proven when my, at the time, AP Euro teacher made me feel like it was completely illegitimate, that my entire experience really was not as tremendous as it was. It's horrible. It's something that you guys will never be able to understand. It's only something that you can be considerate of, that you can try to empathize with, right? And so I was so scared to tell my teachers, like, I'm having a terrible, terrible time with my gender dysphoria. Like, the anxiety is overwhelming. I don't want to be around my peers. Like, I spent a solid chunk of going into, like, AP Lang and working with other students and still being dead named, even though, oh my god, I love you, Miss Machado. Thank you so much for, like, properly addressing me. It's so special when teachers are just respecting you, which is such a low bar, right? But you have to realize, like, you don't want to be in a space where your peers are looking at you different. I had just come out my sophomore year. I've been in classes with, like, people recurringly because I've been in, like, the AP Euros, the AP Langs, the AP Histories, like, all those APs and everything, the ACE classes for English. So I know a lot of those peers, and I know a lot of those peers knew me before. I never experienced, like, outright discrimination from my peers, but that's also because I'm super intimidating, and I know that. I know that as a person, like, I would never be called some of the things that some of my other trans friends are called, because God knows what I would do. Like, I'd be the one getting suspended, not to say anything, but, like, those kinds of small experiences, like, just being referred to as, like, her, or, like, she in a class discussion, were so weighing. And I'm so sorry to those teachers who I missed so much valuable time learning with. It does hurt, because I wish my high school experience would have been even the slightest bit better, so that I could have formed these really important bonds that I did at least my senior year. Like, I'll list all the teachers that are so great because I owe everything to them. Like Berger, Warnick, Sal, Moore, such incredible experiences. Kirshner, even though I highly doubt she'll be seeing this, but yeah, I can't even, like, come to describe the impact that these teachers had on my well-being, like, constantly reassuring me, constantly, like, understanding of my experience, even if I wasn't experiencing as much my senior year. I feel like I may have needed it a little more my junior year, because that's when, like, that big transition was happening, and when, like, the biggest changes were occurring to me, and, like, the social aspect, right? You also have to consider, like, gender dysphoria does make you sometimes really delusional. Even though I explained this on a Twitter thread, that I never got upfront discrimination, but I know for a damn fact people would talk about it behind my back. Like, I'm not naive. I'm really not naive at all, whatsoever. Trans bodies are a call for attention, sadly. That's our reality. Okay, so I know that there's one teacher that I specifically omitted from that list of senior year teachers that I really want to thank, and that is Miss Saklosa, because Miss Saklosa is inarguably the most important teacher I've ever had, because she really taught me how to express myself, not only artistically, but she gave me a space to talk and to create and love myself and be critical of myself in a way that wasn't because I'm trans, but it's more like because I don't have enough B-roll footage. Like, this is definitely going to be critiqued. But this is more like a personal account, so no critiques. I really owe a lot to the amazing faculty, Miss Smart, Mr. McCartan, who is no longer at the school, but my counselor, Miss Smart, such an amazing woman, always doing her best to make me feel at home in her office and make sure that I'm doing okay, always following up. Truly important to have a counselor that cares about you, and all counselors should care about their trans students. I don't want to say like go out of their way, but really do go out of your way. I know there's so many students here, but trans students really deserve a little more attention. They do, because it feels like we're not given enough attention. Our identities aren't given enough attention. So it's so important that we give trans students the attention they need. Aside from that, I also want to thank my peers who maybe are watching this. Don't know if you are. But it's really so relieving to have people just accept the change without a question, right? Like this. So the last group of people, aside from Ms. Stocklosa, who's given me a voice at this school, has to be the peers who didn't even second guess my transition. I have a friend who's going here to USC with me now. Really special when she just accepted. We've known each other since we were in kindergarten, but I haven't talked to her since like kindergarten. Right, we were on a basketball team at one point, but like, it's been a long time, separate ways, right, meeting back at one place, and obviously, she knew when I identified as a woman, but there's no questioning of my identity, and those peers that were able to kind of get the hint, really means everything to me. So, truly, that's what I want to leave off with, because I want to thank people. I would not have gotten out of Cypress alive had it not been for the great support system that I had throughout my junior and senior year after that really terrible period, my sophomore year. And I do want to say I'm sorry to the teachers who I lost so much valuable time with, both junior and sophomore year. I would say specifically Miss Herring, because she's been a shooter for me since my sophomore year, since I joined the Live Poet Society. But it's really special to have a great support system, to have teachers who actually care. Be more like those teachers. And yeah, that's really all I have to say about being trans at Cypress. It's sometimes a terrible experience, sometimes it's great. Yeah, that's really it. I hope you guys have like a more enlightened view of the trans experience at Cypress, because it's something that I wish I could create a documentary about to really like make this more concise, but I told Miss Stocklosa that I wanted to do this very personally, because I feel like my face and my story is compelling, if you want to say the least. I think I can initiate some change here by, I quote unquote, light some fire under your asses. Be kinder, be loving, create spaces for trans students to thrive like I did, to really show off how smart they are. Be considerate of their experiences as well. Okay, we're going through a lot, so homework can be hard sometimes, like focusing can be hard sometimes. Be considerate. Not everyone is like as strong and intimidating as me, so please be considerate of those trans students and go lightning. Although I'll say, fight on.